Good morning. Hope everybody's ready to enjoy what at least the weather forecast says is going to be a good day. Those of you who are watching, I apologize if you hear my neighbor's motorcycle or the dishwasher, or you hear kids screaming in the background from the neighbors to the other side of me. Um, as I'm recording this, it's middle of the afternoon on Tuesday, and everybody seems to be having a good time. Uh, so I apologize if that noise comes through. As usual, I try to organize myself. Today, Group B is in class. Group A is in class. On Friday, there's the page numbers that we'll be going through. And I think um, we'll have to pick it up after break with a few things, but we'll kind of go from there. Some quick things with in-text citations. Um, I stole this from Pennsylvania State University, but I think there are three or four things that are important. On the left side, cite web pages in text as you would any other source, using the author if known. The in-text citation, the goal of that in-text citation, the job of the in-text citation is to lead the reader to the corresponding entry in the reference list. So on the right side are the samples that they have. Parents play an important role in helping children learn techniques for coping with bullying. They have the author's name in parentheses. You could also, if you set it up in the previous sentence, have the author in the text of the sentence. And then if you notice down below, the citation on the works cited page will begin with the last name of the author. The job of the in-text citation is to make it easier for people who want to follow your research to follow your research. This is another one I stole from the same source. The term Nittany Lion was coined by Penn State football player Joe Mason in 1904. That's from the website All Things Nittany. And then again, the reference begins with All Things Nittany. And you notice they have the URL and everything else. And again, I stole this from the same spot. If you have questions about something with 2 authors or 9 authors, or if you have questions about what if you can't find the author, or it doesn't have a title, or it doesn't have a date, the Purdue OWL link I think is one of the best for just running through step by step of what you need to do. I believe it's posted in the annotated bib assignment sheet, but if you have trouble, take a look at that site to see what's going on. Remember the works cited page. This is just a sample. There'll be 2 slides on it. Notice that the term works cited is centered on the page. Notice that all of the details are there, including the EBSCO host, which I hope a lot of you were using. Notice again that it's alphabetical order by the first word. The second and all subsequent lines are indented. And as you keep going down the page, again, alphabetical order, all of the details. Notice that the title of an article is in quotation marks. The title of the journal or the title of the website are in italics. Notice if you have the volume number, all of that. Notice where the dates are. The EBSCO host one will probably give you the page numbers that were in the original print journal. Make sure that you use all the sources available to you to complete the citation, to have everything you possibly can have for the citation. The top one on this page, by the way, if you look, has the et al. That means that there are others. There were more than 3. All of those things are things that you can find fairly easily if you use the links that I've given you. Make sure you cite everything completely. One of the things that I think critical thinking is about is asking questions. One of the things that I hope reading does is it makes people curious. And I think the Henrietta Lacks book should just prompt us about some basic questions about ourselves. And there will be more questions that I'll talk about in future presentations. So some of those questions include, what do I know? What do I need to know to complete the reading? What do I need to know to make sense of the situation I'm reading about? And that's true of fiction, and that's true of nonfiction. Also, I think curiosity should include, what should I want to know? How can I acquire what I need or want to know? And then I think the critical thinking element should include, how can I use what I know? And all of those questions, I think, Henrietta Lacks as a book allows us to think about those questions and to look at answers for those questions. So, let's start with a simple question. Who are the women and how are they connected? I think if you look in the book, the woman on the right is obviously Henrietta Lacks. The woman on the left is a woman who named Hedy Lamarr. The connection, I think, if you're thinking very, very quickly, Hela, all right? Hela. Many replies offered the names of women they believed were behind the Hela cells: Helga Larsen, Heather Langtree, and even the actress Hedy Lamarr. In a follow-up letter on April 20th, 1973, Douglas announced that all these women should withdraw as gracefully as they can, because he'd received a letter from Howard W. Jones that left no doubt that Hela cells were named after Henrietta Lacks. I think one of the things to look at is, why was it so hard for people to accept that it was Henrietta? Again, was the element of race a part of that? Was poverty a part of that? I don't know. But why were they looking for other names, and why were they looking for a celebrity? That's an obvious, easy connection between the two. However, I am guessing that before you read this book, before we talked about it in class, the vast majority of you had probably never heard of Henrietta Lacks. I am guessing also that the vast majority of you had never heard of Hedy Lamarr. And I think it's important, as we go through to, who was this woman? Why should we care? And I think in this one, there's a huge irony. Skloot calls her an actress. That's fair. She was an actress. And if you look at this slide, she began her film career in 1933 at the age of 18, starring in an Austrian film titled Ecstasy. She played the role of a neglected housewife and became famous for doing extremely explicit scenes, which was unheard of in the conservative industry at the time. She was one of the, women who was filmed nude on film, and it happened much earlier than people would have expected it to have happened in a mainstream film. So one of the things she's famous for is being an actress, or she's famous for just being good looking. However, if you look at the right side, George Antheil, and Lamarr developed the idea of using frequency hopping to avoid broadcasting interference and torpedoes. In 1997, they were honored for their achievements in this field, and it was credited as being the forerunner for modern technology such as Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and CDMA. So the fact that you're watching this on your phone, the fact that you have hooked up your phone to a Bluetooth speaker perhaps, or a Bluetooth earbud, if you're using the Apple, earpieces, you're using the Wi-Fi, or the Bluetooth, excuse me, and you're using the Wi-Fi if you're in the classroom and watching, and you're going to be using the Wi-Fi to do your daily writing. She made it possible for you to do that. Her invention during World War II gave us the necessary foundation for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And yet I'm willing to bet that few of you have ever heard of her. And those of you who have heard of her, more than likely, have heard of her as an actress, or perhaps in the early 90s, she was a crazy old woman who shoplifted. The book is mine. I read the book, and I think it's important to understand that, like Henrietta, people wanted to shove her aside because she was a woman. You'll notice the cover is not about Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. The cover is still about her being an attractive woman, and we're going to, kind of titillate with the torpedo. If you look at the left side, it talks about the fact that the U.S. Navy wanted her to sell kisses to support the war bonds. She raised $7 million. It was a heck of a lot of money back in the 1940s. They donated their patent to the U.S. Navy, and they never realized any money from it. And her son talks about her being creative, nonstop solution finding. If you talk about a problem, she had a solution. So she's an intelligent woman. She's an inventor. She worked hard for the United States during World War II. She raised tons of money. She made it possible for GPS on this part of the slide, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and yet a lot of people hadn't heard of her, just like Henrietta made a whole bunch of cures possible through the cells, and we hadn't heard of her. I think it's important to understand that there are some connections, and I think it's important for us to understand and be curious. Who invented this stuff? Where did it come from? What changes had to be made to get from her technology to Bluetooth? I think all of those are questions that we should be having as we're reading, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, anything else. The question, though, is, should she be remembered only as the actress? Should she be remembered as the mother who was super creative? Or should she be remembered as the inventor? Or should she be remembered as all of it, including the woman who was shoplifting in the 1990s? The next thing I want to do is move on to talk about theme a little bit. Theme is usually reserved for fiction, but I think it can work for nonfiction. And I think we want to talk about the term theme, and we're going to start with another term, genre. I think I've mentioned that this book crosses a lot of genres. The blurbs inside the front cover talk about that this book is thrilling and original. It refuses to be shoehorned into anything as trivial as a genre. It is equal parts popular science, historical biography, and detective novel. So this book covers a wide range of genres, and I think because it's a book like this that's tough to classify, the theme and talking about what's the point of the book might also be tough to classify because it covers so many different genres. And then when we talk about what's the book about, remember that what the book is about is a subject. It's a single word or a short phrase. This blurb, I think, gives us the combination of race, class, gender, medicine, bioethics, and intellectual property. All of those things are the subjects of the book. They're not the themes of the book. They're the subjects of the book. Those subjects, I think, can go on to little, like I said, short phrases. The human consequences of the interaction of science and business. And what happens when medical research is conducted within an unequal healthcare system. Theme, I think, tempts to give us not necessarily an answer, but a statement that is an observation about what happens when medical research is conducted within an unequal healthcare system. Or what are the consequences of the intersection of science and business? And what are the consequences of the intersection of science and business within an unequal healthcare system and the medical research that produces the unequal healthcare system, or allows some people to benefit and others to be exploited. Theme tries to observe, not preach sermons, but those questions, I think, help prompt the observations. So, what points does the book make about race, or class, or gender? For example, would this book have been different if Henrietta were a man? Would we be talking about a man being heroic because his cells were used to cure polio and other diseases? Is it different because she was a woman? What does it say about medicine and bioethics? We'll probably pick up some of the failures of bioethics. And what does it say about intellectual property versus the ability to have a control over one's own tissues, in this case, the cells? So remember that with theme, you're going to answer the questions in a complete sentence, not a single word. You're probably not going to be able to cover all of the subjects. There can be more than one theme for any work. You probably, like I said, won't be able to cover all of those subjects or try to answer all of those questions. That's impossible. But everything in the theme should be supported by the work as a whole. So, on the daily writing, I want to go back to Hedy Lamarr for a second. Her son talked about her as this problem solver, this woman who, anytime you came up with a problem, had a solution. Give me a concrete detail to back it up. But how should we think about Henrietta? And again, give me a concrete detail. Back it up with a concrete detail from the book to explain how we should think about Henrietta. Hope everybody has a good day. We'll see you in class on Friday. Remember that the paper is due Friday at 11:59, the revision assignment.